want to do more verses, that's really cool.
Nuts and nuts.
That's nice.
All right,
I think
children.
if we did 3 verses, it would be.
Well, we'll do Lila's 2 verses and then the repeat. Molly Alper. Yeah, that'd be great. Let's start with that, but same key. It's hard to do the same key. We can do it.
No, I don't want it.
No, but it's
so much harder on.
Oh, is it? Okay.
On this guitar, well, just until I get the strap on.
But it is cool in the future. It's the same key. It's just.
Do I want it up more? Coming across?
I don't think so. That's good.
You want to do it a little bit higher?
Which one?
Yeah.
It's harder to sing.
Oh, okay, well,
Yeah.
I'm not singing.
Okay. All right. Welcome, everyone. Shabbat Shalom. So glad to have you here for another one of our at-home Shabbats. And while we believe that we are getting closer and closer to a time where we will start being able to have people back in the building together, and we will, of course, give you plenty of advance warning. We'll be doing it slowly, but at least for now, we love just being able to know that you are watching, that you are with us, at least in your homes and in our hearts and spirits, even if we're not physically together. So we're going to start with a prayer that I feel like we have done a lot this year, but it always seems to be the right one. The words are by Rabbi Menachem Creditor, and it says, Olam Chesed Yibaneh. Olam Chesed Yibaneh, Yedadai, Yedadai, Yedadai. Olam Chesed Yibaneh, Yedadai. I will build this world from love, and you will build this world from love, and if we build this world from love, then God will build this world from love. So each week when we start our Shabbat together, we do the rituals that we hope you are mirroring at home, and we do that beginning with our candle lighting. So Jonah and Molly, will you all help us this evening?
I think by the time you're bar mitzvah, let's do it.
It's child food.
right, so we bring in the Shabbat spirit. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam asher kidshanu b'mitzvotav v'tzivanu lahadlik ner shel Shabbat. It's beautiful, and then if you'll lift your glasses. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam borei peri hagafen.
Amen.
This one has actual
L'chaim.
food in it.
It does, kind of. All right, and we have a yummy challah from Mora Dayan. Mora Dayan, if you're watching, we had to turn back and go to the house, and we found Charlie on the counter just about to dig into the gooey butter. Luckily, it was saved, but we're so glad we get to enjoy all your delicious treats. So let's say our blessing. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam hamotzi lechem min haaretz. Amen. Beautiful. Take a little. It does look like cinnamon. It smells like cinnamon. Yummy. All right. And then it is a tradition on Friday nights to give blessings to the members of our family. So we like to model it here for you in case you wish to do it at home or over the phone or over Zoom or wherever you're doing things. Yeah. Oh, sorry. I got so excited. You start.
You know, I just want to say it's a very biblical thing to confuse the blessing every once in a while as a parent, and it's. I think it's important that it happens.
That's true. Should we switch? How about this? Yisimcha Elohim ke'Ephraim v'chi Menashe. Jonah, may God make you like Ephraim and Menashe, who led our people forward through times of strife.
Yisimach Elohim kasar Rachel v'Leah. May God make you like all the great matriarchs who led us through all of the difficultest times. Is difficultest a word? The most difficult time, and live their lives as blessings, as a teaching of Torah to us that we should live our lives as blessings too.
And now the blessing together. May God bless you and keep you.
May God's light shine upon you and guide you as you go on your way.
May God's countenance be lifted over you. May you be granted with wholeness and peace.
I think we really should, like, if you guys were doing.
We're going to read the story of Joseph later. We'll talk. Okay. And Jacob and Esau.
It is a funny thing about so many of the blessings and the prayers that we do, because the truth is that for a lot of them, there's not necessarily a right way. A lot of these prayers were really written by our ancestors and to tunes that we'll never know. So we thought that tonight we would do a prayer that is not so ancient. It was written by mystics in the city of Sfat called Lecha Dodi, but we thought maybe we would do it to a tune that may sound a little bit more familiar to you, knowing that really anytime we are singing praise of God, then we are finding ways to make holy moments in our lives. Lecha Dodi welcomes the Sabbath bride as she comes into our midst. Shabbat nekabala lecha dodi likrat kala pnei Shabbat nekabala shamor v'zachor b'dibur echad hishmiyanu el hamiuchad Adonai echad u'shmo echad L'shem u'tiferet v'litila. Remember me to the one who lives there. She once was a true love of mine. So we call each other now to words of praise as we sing the Baruch Hu. This is a prayer that if you were at home you might rise for, but here we just know we are calling each other to worship. We join in a Baruch Hu. Yai da 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 da. Yai da 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 da. Yai da 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 da. Yai da 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 da. Yai da 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 da. Yai da 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 da. Yai da 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 da. Yai da 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 da. Baruch Hu et Adonai HaMevorach Baruch Adonai HaMevorach HaMevorach Le'olam Va'ed HaMevorach Le'olam Va'ed. We turn now to those words that we're supposed to say when we get up in the morning and when we go to bed at night, those words that remind us of the oneness of God. Shema Yisrael Adonai Eloheinu Adonai Adonai Echad Baruch Shem Kevod Shem Kevod Malchuto Le'olam Le'olam Va'ed. There's so many things that we ask God for when we pray together. And sometimes we are just reminding ourselves that God is present. Sometimes we are asking God for blessings. But so often what we're doing is we're asking God to just bring us peace. And so we say so many different prayers for peace in the course of the service. We ask God to spread a shelter of peace over us. Then we ask God to spread peace over all Jerusalem. Then we say another prayer just asking God to make peace. You'd think that by some point God might have gotten it, but maybe we just need to keep asking again and again. So we'll start with Hashkivenu, asking God to spread a shelter of peace over us. Hashkivenu Adonai Eloheinu l'shalom Hamidenu Shomreinu L'chaim. Spread the shelter of your peace over us. Guide us in wisdom, compassion, and trust. Hashkivenu Adonai Eloheinu l'shalom V'hamidenu Shomreinu L'chaim. Save us for the sake of your name. Shield us from hatred, sorrow, and pain. Hashkivenu Adonai Eloheinu l'shalom V'hamidenu Shomreinu That prayer for peace asks God not just to spread a shelter of peace over us, but really says, God, when we wake up in the morning, raise us again to life renewed. But when we sing Shalom Rav is really intended, first and foremost, to be a prayer about Israel. And when we have another week in Israel this week that seem like there are tidings of perhaps not so much peace ahead of us, this is a time, maybe more than other times in our history, where we pray, God, spread peace over Israel and also over us. Shalom Rav Yisrael Amcha Tasim La'olam. Shalom Rav Yisrael Amcha Tasim La'olam. Ki Ata Melech Adon L'chol Shalom. Ki Ata Melech Adon L'chol Shalom. Shalom Rav Yisrael Amcha Tasim La'olam. Shalom Rav Yisrael Amcha Tasim La'olam. V'tov beinecha levarech et Amcha Yisrael b'chol etz uv'chol shah b'shlomecha. Shalom Rav Yisrael Amcha Tasim La'olam. Shalom Rav Yisrael Amcha Tasim La'olam. We take a few moments now to think not just of peace, but of wholeness. Though when we say shalom, actually, the word for peace, that it is connected to shlemut, which is one of the things that we wish for when we are wishing for healing. We wish for shlemut, for completeness, and for a complete healing. So we always take a few times to think of those people in our community who are hoping to hear their names heard, who are hoping that we will be praying for them tonight. And so, of course, tonight in particular, we are thinking of Arlene Alper, of Lisi Weinstein, of Jerry Krause and Charles Beach, of Shmuley, of Amy, of Joel. For all of them and for all who are hurting, we sing a Misha Berach. Misha Berach Avoteinu Mekor HaBaracha La'imoteinu. May the source of strength, who bless the ones before us, help us find the courage to make our lives a blessing, and let us say Amen. Misha Berach Imoteinu Mekor HaBaracha La'avoteinu. Bless those in need of healing with refuah shlema, the renewal of body, the renewal of spirit, and let us say Amen. Ose shalom bimromav, uya'ase shalom aleinu, ve'al kol Yisrael ve'i So there are 52 weeks in the year. You probably knew that. There are 54 portions in the Torah, plus there's a few actually extra portions just in case Shabbat falls in the middle of a holiday. And so what that means is that sometimes we have weeks where we have a double portion, 2 parshas read together. We had that last week with Tazria Metzora, which was not really such a big deal because the Torah portions are both about this terrible skin disease. You don't really want to read that for 2 weeks anyway. But then you have a week like this week. This week, we have Acharei Mot Kedoshim. Kedoshim means holiness. And in Parshat Kedoshim, you have really like the best and the most beautiful teachings really in all Torah about how we live in a society. And then Acharei Mot means after death, which sounds actually that maybe the Torah would be telling us what happens after we die, but no. Acharei Mot is talking about what happens after a very specific death. It talks about what happens after the death of Nadav and Abihu, who are Aaron's sons who were killed. Or really, I shouldn't say they were killed, Aaron's sons who were murdered by God. It's a very upsetting story and a very upsetting Torah portion. And, because of it, there were so many questions that are raised in our tradition, right? Because when God is the one who commits this act of murder, obviously God is God. We don't question God. We don't question God's authority. And for these young men who were murdered, our tradition tries to explain why they could have been murdered because it makes no sense. There's one tradition that says that, they were probably inebriated or they were, on drugs, and that's actually why they died. And there's another tradition that says, they were like bad boys to begin with, and it was bound to happen. But no matter what, the tradition can't ever explain it. And there's really no sort of answers for why such a thing happens. And I have found myself thinking a lot about the story of Nadav and Abihu these past weeks as I have been listening, like so many of you, to the coverage of the trial for the murder of George Floyd. And I've been thinking about these similarities and about what it means when you have an act of violence that happens in front of so many people that no one knows exactly how to respond to. I've thought about what happens when that act of violence is committed by someone who we need for our protection and who really you're not supposed to hold accountable in that way. And I've thought a lot about what it means when the one who died is someone who cannot explain or excuse themselves after the fact because they're gone. I've seen all of these connections between these two terrible stories, the one in the Torah and the one in real life. And there were so many connections actually until Tuesday, right? Until Tuesday, when actually it turned out that George Floyd's murder was held accountable. And this was, I think, really probably shocking for many of us, which is maybe a sad thing to say. And on the one hand, it was wonderful to actually be able to see justice served and to feel like our system works. But I don't know about you. There was something about Tuesday that made me feel such a mix of emotions. Because still, it is hard to understand what accountability looks like, what justice really looks like. Because the truth is, the murder happened. There is no taking that back. And the truth is, just like in the Torah and like in real life, just because you're able to solve one crime, just because you're able to hold one person accountable, and when the justice system works just that once, it doesn't really make everything okay. And it should make us ask, well, what happens acharei mot? What should happen after the death? Is this enough? And this is one area in which actually I think our Torah has something marvelous to say. You see, because even when Acharei Mot and Kedoshim aren't read together, we still so often we say them as one thing. We say Acharei Mot Kedoshim, after the death, holiness. What that means in our Torah is that after this inexplicable, awful murder that we cannot explain and that we cannot wipe away, what happens is the next section in the Torah gives us probably the most amazing laws that we have in our entire scriptures. In some of them, it really actually feels very random, like it's just bam, bam, one law after another. Do not place a stumbling block before the blind. Make sure that you're having a Sabbath so that you can rest. Love your neighbor as yourself. We have all of these remarkable teachings, one after another, and each of them seems so simple, but is actually quite complex. One of my favorite ones talks about the idea that if you have a day laborer, that if you have someone working in your home, that you always need to pay them before they go home for the day. And I always think about that one because my grandfather of blessed memory, this is something he always did, and I don't think it's because he read it in the Torah, but he always had cash in the house just in case he had to pay someone. And I felt like that was such a strange thing to do, but I realized, with that one small mitzvah, if you don't pay someone directly after they do the work for you, what impact might that have? Maybe that person will go home and feel that they have done their job poorly. Maybe it will cause them to think less about themselves and their expertise, even if they really did a very good job. Or maybe you don't realize that the money that you owe them, which may just feel like change to you, is actually that little bit of money that they needed to be able to get themselves a meal or to be able to pay the mortgage. Or maybe not paying them on time just means that the next day they're going to have to come back and ask you for the money, and they'll feel shame, and there will be a sense of imbalance between you. I mean, all of these different scenarios that could come just from this one little teaching. And every single law in Kedoshim is just like that. Every single one of them seems so simple, but it's actually so complex. But every single one of them, it's not about society as a whole. It's not about big picture or government. It is about you and me. It is about how we as individuals treat each other. And it's a reminder to us that sometimes even those little bitty things that you don't do, like forgetting to pay someone on time, that those little things can have a huge ripple effect. You never know if it's that one email you wrote that is making someone stay up nights thinking about what they did wrong. You never know if it is that one mean look that you gave someone, not even thinking twice about it, that may make them feel so little inside. You never know if it's the person who you honk at in your car or that extra change that you didn't give. You never know what is the little act between you and me that could make all the difference. What we learn, acharei mot, after this death, is that we know that there are huge issues in our society. And we know there are still so many things that have to be fixed. And together we are going to look at things like police reform, and we are going to look at different social iniquities in our society, and we are going to look at racism, and we are going to be calling our senators, this week especially. A lot of our senators need a call, but there is so much that we can do that's big picture, but Kedoshim says, What about just those little acts that you can do between one person and another? Those are the things that may truly make a difference. And those are the things that we don't need to wait for. We don't have to wait acharei mot. What if instead it happened lifnei mot? What if before there's another death, we figured out how to be kadosh, how to be a holy people? It's not about fixing the world. It's just about fixing what's going on between you and me, between you and the person sitting next to you, or the person who is on the other end of the phone that you just need to pick up. It is about those little acts. We shouldn't have to wait till acharei mot. Last week, Rabbi Michael talked about his favorite quotes, the quote from Rabbi Hillel. And perhaps the most important part of it is that very last line. It says, if not now, when? This is the time when we can start making some holiness, some kedusha in our society. Not acharei mot, but akshav, now. If not now, when? So at this time, I'm going to invite you to turn to page 282, I believe, if you are following along in your Siddur. And for our sixth graders who've been working with your Hebrew, you should know this one well, because this is the one you've been working on. So these are the words of the Aleinu. עלינו לשבח לאדון הכל, לתת גדולה ליוצר בראשית, שלא עשנו כגויי הארצות, ולא שמנו כמשפחות האדמה, שלא שם חלקנו כהם, וגורלנו ככל המונם. ואנחנו קוראים ומשתחווים ומודים לפני מלך מלכי המלכים הקדוש ברוך הוא. ונאמר והיה אדוני למלך על כל הארץ ביום ההוא יהיה אדוני אחד ושמו אחד. And so at this time, we recall with love the name of one taken from us in recent days, and our hearts go out to her family in sympathy as we recall her name, Ruth Sobel. We now recall the names of those the anniversary of whose death occurs on this Shabbat, and whose names have been inscribed in the archives of our congregation or on the Wall of Honor for perpetual memorial. Ralph Bloomberg, Eli Cohen, Grant Cohen, Manuel Coppersmith, Eunice Dreyer, Ida Edison, Eva Heichenfeld, Teresa Fremder, Virginia Freund, Adeline Schoenstatt-Freund, Betty Gershman, Joe Glassman, Audrey Glavinsky, Miriam Goldsmith, Harry Holtzman, Ralph Kalish, William Katz, Donald Kessler, Martin Kosberg, Jeanette Lieberman, Louis J. Lossis, Simon Lossis, Mina K. Lowenstein, George Milius, Morris Missler, Dorothy Molaski, Joan Knackman, Edwin Olshansky, Nathan George Rockman, Aaron Scharf, Marvin Schmidt, Leo Schwab, Jeannie Seidler, Lori R. Schanfeld, Clifford Allen Schanfeld, Fred Sufian, Jacob Wasserman, Jean Yowitz. So with those names and the names we keep in our hearts, we join in the words of the Mourner's Kaddish, which if you're following in our Siddur is on page 294. Yitkadal v'yitkadash shemei Rabbam, ba'alma divrach yiruteh v'yamlich malchuteh, b'chayachon uvyomechon uv'chayei dechol Beit Yisrael, ba'agala uv'yizman kariv imru amen. Yehei shmei Rabbam b'varach la'alam u'amei almaya, Yitzbarach v'yishtabach v'yitzpa'ar v'yitromam v'yitnaseh, v'yitadar v'yitaleh v'yitalal shmei dekudesha b'richu, La'ela min kol birchata v'shirata, tushbechata v'nechamata, Ta'amiran ba'ama v'imru amen. Yehei shlama rabba min shemaya, v'chayim aleinu v'al kol Yisrael, v'imru amen. Oseh shalom b'ramav, hu ya'aseh shalom, aleinu v'al kol Yisrael, v'imru amen. May the source of peace and peace to all who mourn, and comfort to all who are bereaved. And we say, amen. Oseh shalom b'ramav, hu ya'aseh shalom, aleinu v'al kol Yisrael, ve'imru amen. So for those of you who have not been joining us every week, you may not know, but what Rabbi Michael and I have been doing is many weeks we've been trying to find some sort of secular song that sort of fits the mood of the Parsha or what's going on in the world. We're sort of on a Paul Simon kick tonight, I think.
Well, I think that's okay because there's Simon and Garfunkel.
That's
and
true.
Then let's just not tell them everything right away.
Well, I will just say that this is one of those songs that
it's a very nice.
This is one of those songs that I feel like I did not actually really know what it meant until COVID, and now somehow it means so much more. So we hope this is one you probably know, that at least you'll join us with the chorus, but that you'll sing along. Slip sliding away, slip sliding away. You know, the nearer your destination, the more slip sliding away. came from my hometown. He wore his passion for his woman like a thorny crown. He said, Dolores, I live in fear. My love for you's so overpowering, I'm afraid that I will disappear. Slip sliding away, slip sliding away. You know, the nearer your destination, the more I slip sliding away. I know a woman became a wife. These are the very words she uses to describe her life. She said, a good day ain't got no rain. She said, a bad day's when I lie in bed and think of things that might have been. Slip sliding away, slip sliding away. I know you're near the destination, the more I slip sliding away. I know a father who had a son. He longed to tell him all the reasons for the things he'd done. He came a long way just to explain. He kissed his boy as he lay sleeping, then he turned around and headed home again. Slip sliding away, slip sliding away. You know, the nearer your destination, the more I slip sliding away. And God only knows, God makes his plan. The information's unavailable to the mortal man. We're working our jobs, collecting our pay. Believe we're gliding down the highway, when in fact we're slip sliding away. Slip sliding away, slip sliding away. You know, the nearer your destination, the more I slip sliding away. Shabbat shalom, everyone.
I didn't cry. I made it. It's Shabbat. We're gonna be joyful.
I thought it was a sad song. But
Please,
it's
please.
a sad song.
Listen to those words.
Amen.
Torah.